Great to see everybody today. Hope you enjoyed your snow day. I'm Lauren Ferrara. I'm here as a mom, as a community member, as a concerned citizen, and just grateful that this is happening. We're all here because we love our kids. We want to do right by them, and we want you all to be equipped with knowledge in case you find your child in a situation that's uncomfortable or potentially dangerous. So the guiding principle in my career as a journalist was always a quote by a former Supreme Court justice who said, "Sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants." And that's what we're hoping to do tonight, is bring this into the sunlight and hopefully make a good start on improving the safety of our schools for kids. So before we introduce all these wonderful panelists tonight, our superintendent, Elizabeth Domingue, has a couple comments that she'd like to make first, and then we'll make some introductions.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. And we know folks are going to continue to join. We have a couple of hours together. You can see that Lauren and I had to make a quick switch, and I understand how we've been living through this needing to work virtually for now about 22, 23 months. But just the ability for us to be flexible and to figure these things out is just a testament to, I think, all of the skill sets we're gaining. But we're here tonight just to spend time together, to come together as a community, understand what's on the hearts and minds of our students and our staff and our families and lots of our community partners that are here tonight. As many of you know, our school district is a wonderful place for children to be. In fact, it's a very special school district, and it's a place where we lean into our core values of relationships, deep learning, and opportunity at every turn. And we want to continue to do that. And we believe tonight is an opportunity for us to strengthen those relationships, have an opportunity to come together in a unique way. And also it is a snow day, so we were able to pivot as well. And then just learn from each other. And we believe this is the start of an important community dialogue that we're excited to embark on. As we know, we have a recent situation where we had two prior employees. I want to say these are prior employees, have not worked with the district for over five years, and some longer than that. And then we also had the recent arrest of a child who made a threat to our school. And naming those things are important, but I just want to make sure that we are thinking about this as an opportunity for us to come together, to look to what is going really well in our school district. I'm so proud of the things that we are doing and accomplishing every single day for our community, but also look to the future. And while these things may have happened, we are optimistic about what the future holds. So thank you again for joining us this evening. We have a tight agenda, and we're looking forward to that. So thanks for the panelists as well.
And so I'll explain the format a little bit. We've had students, community members, and staff the opportunity to submit questions. So we are going to get to as many of those questions as we can. And if there are questions we don't get to, we're making note of those, and the district will respond afterwards. And then if questions arise as you're listening to this, go ahead and put that question in the chat, and we'll try to spend the final 20 minutes or so of our time on those questions that come to mind right now. So let's start with introductions from our panelists. You all know Elizabeth, so I'll just go down this list. Sierra Dunlap, can you spend about a minute or so introducing yourself, say who you are, why you're here, and then we'll move through the panelists. So we'll start with you, Sierra.
Hi, my name is Sierra Dunlap. I'm a sophomore at Manitou Springs High School. I'm super excited to be a part of this panel and just have a student voice as well. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
We're so grateful to have you. Dustin, could you introduce yourself?
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Dustin Cady. I'm the proud principal of Manitou Springs Middle School. And I just feel so lucky every day driving to work, looking at Pikes Peak, that I get to work in this wonderful district with amazing staff and students. So thanks for having me on tonight.
Thanks, Dustin. And Maggie?
Hi, I'm Maggie Elias, and I am the school social worker for both the middle school and the high school. And I am really happy to be here and share this discussion with you all.
And Stephanie Wilson.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Wilson. I serve the district as I'm a counselor for Ute Pass Elementary School, and I also serve our team as a team lead for the mental health. And I'm a district support counselor, and I am so excited to be a part of this bunch and to be a part of this today.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. And Mo?
Hi, good evening. Mo Basenberg. I'm with Safe Passage. I serve as their executive director. Thank you for having me a part of this panel tonight.
Thank you. And Jan?
I'm Jan Isaacs Henry. I am the executive director and co-founder of Kid Power of Colorado. I'm a former psychotherapist. Kid Power is a nonprofit that teaches young people and their adults personal safety and confidence building skills. We've partnered with Manitou since 2001, so a really, really long time. We think about Manitou as a Kid Power district because of how they prioritize the safety of their students. So typically we're in the elementary schools when we are here, and we are one of those upstream approaches to prevent childhood trauma and protect kids by teaching them skills to be safe.
Wonderful.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. And Renee?
Hi, everyone. I'm Renee Gonzalez. I am with El Paso County Department of Human Services. I am the field investigator and law enforcement liaison for the department. I've been with DHS for going on 15 years. So I've been there for quite a while and have seen a lot of changes, and what we're doing tonight, I think, is just phenomenal. And I am also the parent of a Manitou High School graduate as well. So I've got a lot of love for Manitou.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Ann Markley.
Hi, I'm Ann Markley. I am the CEO of TESSA, and we provide support and services to individuals and families that have experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. And we play a large role in Manitou Springs schools with doing healthy relationship curriculum with your youth.
Thanks. And Gus.
Who am I? So I am Gustav Moen. I am a director on the Board of Education for District 14. I am a parent of a student in the district. I also serve on the Beehive, a community nonprofit that works toward informing and moving toward a trauma-informed community in this area. And I also am a psychotherapist specializing in trauma therapy and do training on that as well. And so I look forward to this engagement this evening with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Emily.
Good evening. My name is Emily Pyle. I am the program manager of the Building Resilience for Healthy Kids program, which is a Children's Hospital Colorado Springs program. And we are in Manitou Middle School. The program is an upstream resilience program that equips students with the tools and skills necessary to thrive in the face of adversity. And we are so grateful for our partnership with Manitou. I'm here to have an open dialogue around how we can best support our kids. They certainly are our future, and we absolutely owe it to them. So thank you.
Oh, this is a great panel. I'm really excited about hearing from everybody. Now, like I said, we have all the questions, and every single question that was submitted, we are trying to address. So unfiltered questions and a very open dialogue. So I think I know I was very excited to see that. So we'll just dive right in and get to the first question. In light of the alleged adult, and I'm going to direct this first to Elizabeth and then to Dustin. In light of the alleged adult sexual misconduct at the high school, what deep dive steps are being taken to determine how, why, and what happened to allow this to happen without immediate consequences? Also, will there be an external investigation or focus groups? And going forward after the alleged sexual misconduct investigation, what steps will be implemented in the district and community to ensure this doesn't happen again?
Thank you for that question, and to whomever submitted that question. Before we do that, Lauren, can we just take a second to introduce Officer Strider?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I miss you?
Sorry about that.
Mandy, I'm sorry. Yes, Officer Strider, could you introduce yourself too?
No problem. I was hoping I would get to fly under the radar.
Right.
I'm Officer Mandy Strider. I'm the school resource officer for the district. I just started there at the beginning of this school year, so I'm brand new at this job. Prior to that, I worked in the medical field for about 9 years in pediatrics and peds ICU. And then I became an English major and was a grant writer for several local nonprofits. And then I decided the next way I wanted to make a difference was in law enforcement. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This district is amazing and this community is really great. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
You picked a heck of a year to start in education. Now, would you guys like me to repeat that question? That first question? Okay, in light of the alleged adult sexual misconduct at the high school, what deep dive steps are being taken to help determine how, why, and what happened to allow this to happen without immediate consequences? Will there be an external investigation or focus groups? And going forward after this investigation, what steps will be implemented in the district and the community to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Great. Thanks for that question. And I can first say that we have taken a lot of reflective moments through this time period. And I really like to highlight through the reports of sexual misconduct. Those are still under investigation. And so there are things that we can speak to and things we are not able to speak to about at this time. However, that doesn't mean that we're not taking all of this extremely seriously as we move together. And that's one of the reasons we're hosting this tonight. Just even starting with the types of questions that are being asked tonight, do we have really solid responses and have we already been starting that process? So I began in the district about 2.5 years ago, and it's interesting, 3 years in my superintendency have been in a pandemic, but I can't think of a better time to lead. And when these moments come up, we look as an opportunity. And so one of the big parts of our work now is ensuring that our staff are trained, that we're trained, that we have best practices in place, that we have strong partnerships with folks that are on this panel and agencies and nonprofits that we work with closely. And so I would say that really our relationship with Manitou Springs Police Department has strengthened. I'm thankful for Officer Strider and her addition to our school district. But also we are looking at policies. And so we have a couple of members tonight here of our board. I know they're also participating as attendees as well. Just for the record, this is posted as an open meeting because we have a few more board members here present. But really just being open to processes, looking at our internal processes. I can honestly say over the years, we've already started a lot of this work. So I feel like we're in a good position to say these are the things we're doing. For example, Title IX trainings with our staff, our administrative staff, and just continuing that work. We know there were some significant changes to Title IX in 2020, and so we have to just be aware and prepared for those changes. And then also there's the question about external investigations. Yes, we are conducting our own external sort of management assessment, looking at our policies and our practices. Those are going to be led by some folks outside of the district and really looking at some focus groups at both our students, staff, and parents. For example, how well do our students feel right now in terms of their understanding of mandatory reporting? Do they have a trusted adult in the school? But we're going to be able to dive into a lot of these points as we move forward tonight. But I can, with 100% commitment, is that this is so important for our school district. The number one thing a parent or a spouse or a grandparent or whomever it might be is that when you leave in the morning, you want to feel safe and you want your child to feel safe, and that's very important for us. So looking forward to just continuing to strengthen our processes. So I'm going to turn it over to Dustin.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. And you mentioned the top priority of all of our schools and our district is the health and safety of all of our students. So at the school level, we are really focused on creating a culture where students feel safe to say something if they notice something that might not be right or not feel right. So really educating all of our students on how to do that and how to do that safely. And many of them want to do that anonymously. So For example, I can speak for the middle school. Just a few weeks ago, we had class meetings, myself and our assistant principal, Mrs. Bartlett, and we were able to meet in small groups with every single student at Manitou Springs Middle School. And we talked about a lot of different topics just to set the tone for the second semester, including things like if you don't feel safe, or if you hear something that's going on, talk to a trusted adult. That can be a parent, a guardian, a counselor, a teacher, an administrator. So really just giving kids, empowering them to say something and to let them know that we're there for them. And then really educating them on also Safe to Tell, which is an anonymous reporting system if they don't feel comfortable saying something to an adult. And we'll get into that program a little bit later. So just know that those conversations are happening with students at the school level. We're also leaning into our community partnerships. So I'm really thankful that Tessa's here this evening, and Children's Hospital. Just last week, Tessa came in and presented to our 7th and 8th graders and talked about healthy relationship and boundaries and consent, and many of the topics that we're trying to address moving forward. So that was wonderful to partner with Tessa. And then obviously Children's Hospital is supporting our 6th graders with that resiliency program. In addition, we're mandatory reporters, all school district employees, and we do an annual mandatory reporter training. So we're really looking at, as a school district, how can we enhance that training to make sure our staff all know exactly what they're supposed to do if they suspect child abuse or neglect. And then additionally, just encouraging an open dialogue between families and the school. And for example, there was a parent that reached out to me in the fall who had some concerns around some cyberbullying, potential harassment. So we were able to work together to quickly address that situation and come to a resolution. So there's lots of good things happening, lots of important conversations at the student, staff, and community level. So really appreciate the work that we're all doing.
Thanks a lot, Dustin. Now I'm directing the next question to Stephanie and Anne. What is being done to prepare students for what happens when a predator is taking advantage of them? How can they recognize the emotions, what to expect? It's often hard for teens of both genders to realize they're being taken advantage of, and when they're being groomed by predators. They can feel special, they can feel loved, and then they can feel this guilt and shame following that. Do you have maybe a guest speaker in mind who's experienced this? Is there a psychologist who could talk to that? Stephanie, could you touch on that first?
Yeah, so we do a lot of developmentally appropriate education with kids on understanding boundaries and warning signs. I know with the littles, I encourage them a lot, even with hugs, to ask first before touching, making them aware that they are in charge of their bodies and what makes them comfortable. We obviously our community partnerships. We have had Tessa come to our school. I know Kid Power has been a big part of Manitou Elementary as well. And that'll be coming up here next. Obviously, Safe to Tell is something, and we've encouraged kids, if it's something that makes you uncomfortable and you're not quite sure, it's still worth a report. Because I agree that kind of thing can seem a little foggy to a developing mind. And so we just always encourage to report. In the past, we've offered Sources of Strength, which is a curriculum that talks a lot about building or having trusted relationships and knowing who you trust to report to. So when those kind of things come up, you already have someone you identify that you could talk to. We also, our district is in partnership and training around being trauma informed for trauma detection and management. So a lot of times with younger kids, being aware of behavior changes, diet changes, physical changes, maybe friendship changes at the older levels. And so we also are very attuned to those as adults as we care for the kids in the building.
Thanks so much. And Anne, can you talk to what you guys do at Tessa to prepare kids for what happens when a predator might be taking advantage of them?
Yes, so like Dustin and Stephanie both said, we have been a partner in Manitou Springs Schools for a number of years now. And it's actually one of our strongest educational partners within this region. And we're incredibly proud of Manitou for taking a proactive approach to educating their youth on healthy relationships, red flag signs. We do a lot of discussion, like they both said, about boundaries, each of our own individual boundaries, our body boundaries. We talk about consent, and what that looks like, and when those things come into play. We do that both in our middle and high schools within Manitou, and have really seen a lot of great feedback from our youth and from our teachers in being able to bring those programs. That is ongoing, that we bring into the schools. We start with 6-week program, and then Manitou has been really engaged with us through their Partners for Healthy Choices program in letting us know also what the district needs, what the kids need, how we can educate the teachers and staff further to be able to support students in the environment as well. So again, we feel very strongly about the education we're able to bring into the district to the youth, really to prepare them for those things should those arise, and also just to make them be healthier adults as well.
Thank you so much. Now, this next question I'm going to direct to you, Officer Strider, and it's how two-part question. First off, how true are the allegations against the former teacher? And another person who submitted a question said they read that the former administration team knew about the events with these men. Are those former administrators being investigated?
So to the first part of the question, how true are the accusations? So we were able to conduct an investigation and to get an arrest warrant signed. So that's the first part of the process. This teacher's guilt or innocence is going to be determined through a court of law. So it's important to remember that everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty. But from my perspective, I just conducted the investigation like we would any other investigation. As far as the second part, are the former administrative staff being investigated? So I cannot speak to anything about a past or an ongoing investigation. I think Elizabeth mentioned that she was conducting a separate investigation, and she can speak more to that if she wants to. But again, we're kind of limited in the information that we can give out.
Totally understand that. Elizabeth, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, the same, because it's ongoing investigation. We work completely with Officer Strider as we move forward, if there's additional information that we can provide. But the external management assessment is really in terms of where we currently are now and how comfortable do our students and our staff feel, what additional trainings do they need. As I said earlier, during the time of those alleged incidents, wasn't here. So we have to really take a stance right now of law enforcement is doing that component, and we are saying, here's our stop. Here's where we are right now. Here's what we know we've done together, and here's how we're going to move forward. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Now, and I'll go back to you now, both of you actually. What is the plan for future threats on the school?
Yeah, I think honestly, just keep doing more of what we're doing. And a lot of the work that we do when any type of threat comes in is a multi-tiered approach. It includes an interdisciplinary team, including our mental health providers, our school administration, law enforcement sometimes, and other agencies, for example, maybe Beacon, as we need other supports as well. DHS is also sometimes involved. I just want to quickly say that a few years ago when I first started the mental health team, we really worked on developing a comprehensive approach to when we are alerted of a need for a threat or a risk assessment, a suicide assessment. I'm really proud of that work. And I think our team has really took a step back and said, how do we make sure we're doing what we need to do in terms of a strong training around risk and threat. I know there's another question later on, but also just making sure that it's interdisciplinary in nature. So what a social worker might bring to the table might be a little bit different than, of course, the school administrator and then law enforcement, but just making sure we're looking at that closely and using the right tools, making sure the tools are appropriate to each age group. And I would just also add, just continuing to strengthen our partnerships. And then finally, information sharing. When you look back at a lot of the incidents related to Arapahoe and those opportunities that were really horrible situations, for lack of better words, is that how do we share information with the right people and make sure that we're moving along? And so, is that a small group that needs to know, or is that a larger group? And we really are constantly assessing that. I would say that also Stephanie and Maggie might be able to expand on that particular question as well as Officer Strider.
Would you like to weigh in?
So from a law enforcement perspective, we are going to take all threats seriously and follow the leads until we figure out where they come from and the next best steps to keep everybody safe. So that's top priority. Honestly, one of my only jobs is to make sure that everybody is safe. So we're a smaller department. Of course, there's less than 20 people that work for the Manitou Springs Police Department. So a huge part of how we're able to investigate things thoroughly and make sure we're doing the right things is by leaning on other agencies and organizations to help us out. And that's just a philosophy of our department. That's how we can be small but mighty. And then to kind of piggyback on what Elizabeth is saying, I think internally having those really strong relationships with students and staff, making people feel like if they come to us with a concern, we're going to take it seriously, we're going to listen to them. That's one of the biggest pieces of prevention, not only from a law enforcement perspective, but also from a mental health perspective and everything in between. So my goal really is, and I think this is what I've seen from the whole staff, is we want to build partnerships and collaborations and strong relationships to make everybody feel safe. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
I think what I would add is keeping in mind too, when something is reported, like it was mentioned earlier, innocent until proven guilty, we take confidentiality very seriously. However, with Colorado, there is a Claire Davis law that not only holds us responsible, but we are accountable to making sure that information of threats are shared with the appropriate parties, including the person that may be threatened. And so we do take that seriously.
Good, thank you. So somebody else wants to know more about Safe to Tell. They question if students are using it inappropriately to get another student in trouble. Now, how are these reports used and how are they verified? And we'll go to you, Officer Strider, first.
I'm so popular tonight. So Safe to Tell is an anonymous reporting platform that anybody can submit a tip through. So that could be a tip about a student who's feeling suicidal, someone who's maybe self-harming, someone who's getting bullied, any sort of assault, whether it's physical or sexual. It could be a tip that someone has that they've seen, maybe concerns that a student is planning to threaten the school or other students or other teachers. So I think with any anonymous reporting system, you're going to run the risk of it being used inappropriately. But I would honestly investigate for threats or for tips that are not based at all in reality and get one that's going to help save someone's life or make someone go on a better path than not having the system in place at all. So I think that's just really important to remember that, of course, it's going to be misused, but if it can save one person, then I think it's completely worth it. So I really encourage all of our students and staff to use it. And then once we get a tip in, we work with, we kind of filter it through depending on what the tip is. So is it someone who needs behavioral health intervention? Then we'll send that to the counselor. Is it law enforcement related? Then my team will look at it. Does it need to be disciplined with the administrative staff? So we're making sure we get the information to the right people, and that's kind of how it works. I think it's, again, it's very important, and there's been so many things that have been not only in our district but across the state, so many things that have been prevented because of it. So I think it's good overall.
Great, thank you. And Sierra, is that something you can speak to as a student? Do you see it being misused?
So from a student perspective, I think Safe to Tell is just a great way to report something anonymously, because it can be pretty intimidating to go in to someone and tell them something that might be getting a different student in trouble, things like that. But I do know that there have been certain students who misuse it, who try and get other kids in trouble, who think of it as kind of a joke. And so I think the importance of emphasizing how important it is and how good of a resource it is also a really important thing that our school is doing. Just knowing that this isn't a platform to mess around on or anything like that. So I do think it has been misused by certain students, but in the end, it also has been used by students to help other kids as well. So I think it's a great resource.
Thanks. And Justin, you wanted to add something?
Well, I really appreciate your perspective, Sierra. That's a wonderful comment. And it just goes to, as a school district, we want to create a culture where kids feel safe to report, and this tool allows them to do that. So from an educational perspective, we're going to continually talk about Safe to Tell and educate our student body on how to use it appropriately, what it's for. Circling back to those class meetings that we just had at the middle school, Safe to Tell is really good educational material. We were able to show a video to the students so they know exactly how to use it. And then, when we're following up with a student who may have had a report made about them, we'll always maintain the dignity of that student and just make sure we're treating them with respect. So it's a really powerful tool, and I'm just excited that our community is aware of it.
Yeah, thank you. So another person with a question would like to know more about how the district is working to create an environment where kids feel safe to report. From what they've read in the media, it seems like this was not the culture in the past. Officer Strider, could you talk to that first?
Sure. So like I said, I can't really speak to what things were like before I got there. I just started in August. So I can only speak to what my personal goals are and my own philosophy, which is I want to just make sure that I build those partnerships so people feel safe coming to me. If you come to me with a concern or anything, I'm going to start by believing you. So I want to make that clear to everybody. I'm going to do everything within my power to follow up, to conduct a thorough investigation, and treat everyone with respect and dignity along the way. So, and from what I have seen from my coworkers in the district, that seems to be the general consensus. I think it's, again, I can't speak to the past, but I feel like it's unfortunate that some people may not have felt that before. So I think everybody here is committed to turning that around and to working hard every day to make sure that we're creating a positive culture.
Thank you. Yeah. And Jan, from Kid Power, would you speak to your involvement in that area?
Sure. And Dustin actually addressed this at the middle school level, but the district brings Kid Power in at the elementary school level so we can reach kids early. And Kid Power teaches students how to report, but equally important, adults how to listen. And this is really essential because what we know is that abuse thrives in secrecy. right? So the truth is that we know that many kids don't disclose at all. And kids have a lot of reasons for why they don't disclose. It could be they think they're going to get in trouble, or they think it's their fault when clearly it is not their fault, or somebody threatened them or their family, or they feel ashamed, or because the person that they're trying to disclose to is too busy or is dismissive, or they just don't have the words. So Kid Power helps kids identify trusted adults and gives them the language to report. Because again, sometimes they don't feel like they have the right words. So sometimes they'll give they'll give adults snippets of information and expect adults to read their minds, because it's really difficult to make that disclosure. And so what we do is we give them that language and teach them how to persist in telling until their concerns are addressed. And for adults, we teach them how to listen to disclosure in a calm way so that the kids won't shut down. And then also how to be able to ask questions that may help open up lines of communication so that kids will be safe in coming to their trusted adults in order to tell.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Jan, for adding that. And after some of these incidents have happened, I've had a good opportunity to speak with a lot of our staff, and we've done some listening sessions, just what's on their mind as these incidents come forward. But I think you bring up a really important point in that just listening, and I can wholeheartedly say that many of our staff had said it'd be really helpful. Sometimes we do a training, and here's what it means to be a mandatory reporter, or here's what Title IX is. But really what I hear them asking for is situational role play to say, all right, here's if a student or staff member, whatever the case might be. So I'm looking forward to us developing tools and opportunities for us to practice these things together as professionals. When I think about the responsibility we have as safety and security and welfare of others, then as much as we can practice how we would handle difficult situations, I think it's going to be super important moving forward. So we can have knowledge, but we also have to develop a skill set with practice.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to direct this first to you, Gustav, and then to you, Dustin. How does the district outline what an appropriate relationship between a staff and a student, or staff and staff, looks like?
Thank you for the question. I have a few hats on this evening. I'm going to start with a board hat, I guess, with that question. So we've heard relationships spoken about a lot this evening, and relationships are very important, not surface level, but true relationships, and what I would call authentic relationships. Those are what we are seeking. From a board perspective, just to share some things that we as a board are looking at, these things would be reviewing policy, looking to ensure that interactions and relationships are clearly defined. So these are more textbook actions, looking to make sure that we're aware of situations that we want to avoid. So looking at the who, what, why, where, when, and hows, and those types of things, to make sure that we are not setting ourselves up in situations that could be detrimental. We are also looking at things like clubs and athletics, where we might be on overnight stays outside of the district, and who is staying in rooms with students and staff, and how those ratios look and how that works. We spoke a lot already about mandatory reporting and those standards, and training and discussion around that. I think there cannot be enough of that. So continuing along that, continuing the role playing, a lot of these things can be quite nuanced. And so really truly understanding and being confident, not checking a box that we took a 15-minute class, but that we truly embody and understand what this means. Safe to tell was brought up, how students may report through safe to tell, but also through trusted adults. And that leads us to those relationships. And we've talked again at length about relationships as a core value in our district. And it's quite important that we are seeing students for who they are and that we're allowing them to see us for who we are, that we are not putting on masks, that we are being authentic and building a true relationship. This is not simply a motion we're going through, but we have true interest and care for each other. People understand when they're being handled. And so it's quite important that we're genuine and that we form these true relationships with each other so that truth can come out, so that people can feel safe. Understand that someone who is groomed, as we've mentioned before, that's a term that was used before. Someone who is groomed is identified by an individual in a very keen and succinct way. These individuals who we might call a predator understand who is open for their advances through cues from someone who may not have an authentic relationship with their own self. So understand that these individuals, these kids need our, as we kind of, Jan spoke very eloquently about this, truly understanding the individual who might have difficulty coming forward. And so it's almost as if we're not only listening, but we're listening to their mannerisms, their actions, their behaviors, their thoughts, if we can even get to that level. So truly understanding what someone might be going through and offering that pathway to discussion. Are you okay today? You seem a little off. So it's more than simply aligning pathways for a student to pursue when they feel they need to. It's going further than that and truly engaging and paying attention and forming those relationships with everyone in our district. So we do notice when something is wrong, something is different, and we can look into that further.
Thank you. And Dustin, could you talk about the what an appropriate relationship between a staff and a student and staff member looks like?
Yes, and I do appreciate the question, and I've had a lot of conversations with staff members this past month about that. Staff who want to do the right thing, and they're just with students and they're teaching, and a lot of questions have come up about this exact topic. So I'm excited about the work that the Board of Education is doing to look at policy, and once that's outlined, I think it's really important that we, to Gus's point, we don't just have a 15-minute, here's the policy. We have a thorough dialogue around that, and we make sure that staff are able to ask questions and have an ongoing dialogue, not just at the beginning of the year, but as different situations arise, staff are comfortable asking administration, asking each other, just what's okay, what's not okay, because every situation can look a little bit different. And the same with students, that we, to Gus's point about those relationships, that they can, ask an adult, a parent, a board member, an administrator, if they have questions about what that looks like as well.
Just add as well, I think this is where our parents are super important to this process. So, parents, if there's something that seems off or doesn't seem appropriate, to feel like you can ask those questions. We'd rather err on that side of understanding versus not. So I would just say that's where our parent partnerships are super important. Your child the best, and we want to make sure that those open dialogues are happening. I know that Dustin and I were just recently working through a circumstance, and it was presented by a parent, which we really appreciated. And we'd rather be on the proactive side versus the reactive side. And sometimes, there are difficult conversations that have to happen, but ultimately we have to think about the child's safety. And I would also just say that this is where just that strong awareness and communication and just continuing to come back to our core values is so important here.
Thank you. Now, Maggie, I'll direct this question at you. The question is, I'd like to know what training staff administrators have in conducting threat assessments and if they're following the best practices. Do parents and guardians receive a report and action plan?
Thank you. So we had taken a threat assessment training through the Colorado School Safety Resource Center the summer of 2020 before school started. And I know the entire mental health team was there, and there were several administrators as well on how to conduct a threat assessment and what steps we should take in the hierarchy. We also just recently had Jennifer Trainer, one of our mental health providers, attend a discussion for threat assessment professionals on January 11th, and they clarified what things should be in the threat assessments, what things shouldn't be. And let's see, what was the second part of that question?
Oh, that was, do parents and guardians receive a report or an action plan?
So they definitely are able to receive a report if they ask for it. It's always open for them. If they don't ask for it, they might not get it, but they definitely are welcome to have a report. And then the response management and support plan is something that we do usually with the parents when the student returns to school.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, Sierra, I'll direct this question to you. How do you think the school is supporting students who feel like outsiders, those that don't fit the mold or the brand? Often these kids are struggling with depression and they can be targeted and misunderstood by staff. What are ways you think your school can start including these kids rather than excluding them? And I'll go ahead and read the entire question. They wanted to know if there was support in getting them connected or engaged. They said it's tough enough as an adult when you feel like an outsider. They really want to help kids get connected, and mentioned the Flying Pig Farm, a partnership with them, or maybe something like a peer navigator, a student who once felt like an outsider who's kind of found their way. So Sierra, could you talk to what that looks like in your school?
Yes, absolutely. So I was a part of the district accountability committee, and I was a part of the trauma-informed subgroup, and we did a lot of work on questions like this. Trauma is on all different types of levels. There can be severe trauma, minor trauma, it's still trauma. And feeling like an outcast or not being included in school is definitely a form of trauma. And COVID as well has definitely created social boundaries too. So it's a lot more difficult for students to get involved in school. But there are lots of clubs that are offered within our school, but most of them are either academic or sports related. And so that was kind of something that we discussed in the trauma category in the DAC, of just about how to give students a voice in certain courses that they could possibly take. So we brainstormed different course ideas, like a mental health course that students could take and express their feelings and opinions about things. And that's another thing, is maybe conducting some sort of survey to allow students to share their voice about certain clubs or groups that they'd be interested in, or having some sort of club fair to provide students with a resource to get information about certain clubs that could be currently going on at the school as well. So there are a lot of different clubs that we have that maybe aren't advertised as much as they could be, and that could allow students to get more involved. And there are lots of groups like the Flying Pig Farm or other community groups that I'm sure would love to partner up with the school and give students opportunities as well. So
thanks. And Dustin, can you talk about how the middle school kind of wraps their arms around kids that might feel like outsiders?
Definitely. We just, again, Sierra, awesome comment. And to your point about just a wide variety of clubs and activities, but we really want to focus on making sure all of our population of students feel safe and supported. So I'm really proud. We just were able to start a student-led group that supports our LGBTQ students. And at the middle school level, that's something that is really important as well. So just looking for all of those types of opportunities to enhance our culture and make sure all of our kids are feeling safe and included.
Thank you both so much. Now I want to ask what resources are available to teachers and staff that might be struggling with these recent events. The negative media can cause feelings of judgment and being under a microscope. So Elizabeth, I'll let you respond to that.
Sure, I'll respond, and then I'd love to hear maybe even Maggie or Stephanie to add as well. So as I mentioned, after these events happened, we engaged in some informal opportunities for staff to just share. And I can just tell you the range of emotions is pretty huge. And from a lot of different circumstances where people may have had prior experiences with some of the former staff. And so just working through those situations has been very interesting. But I can just honestly say that this is probably something that our school teams and our administrative teams as well through the DAC are really thinking about how we have significant opportunities for students, but we see that we still need to provide more opportunities for our staff to engage and just opportunities to talk about hard things in meaningful ways without fear or concern. So that's some of the things that are on our minds. And then also just thinking about some informal groups around if it's a focus group. I was talking with someone recently saying it might be really neat to bring in folks who are alumni who also have our staff in the district. They bring a very unique perspective and long history. So how do we figure out ways to have dialogue and opportunities really to make sure this never happens? These things are preventable. They really are. And we can really work together and make sure that we have opportunities. But this is hard. It's a hard time, but I can assure everyone that we're recognizing how great our school district is and also opportunities for growth. But we want to recognize that when news like this hits, it hits personally. And we want to make sure that we don't just throw that under the rug and that there are opportunities. So I would just say, let's all have open doors and talk openly and positively about what the future holds. And I would love to see if Stephanie or Maggie have something to add there.
I was just going to add that Stephanie and I spoke before this, and we talked about the EAP program for staff members. And I know Dustin had shown staff members actually how to access that online in one of the staff meetings, and also want to put in a plug for the Beehive in Manitou Springs. So there are other options aside from we're always there, the mental health team, for the staff, but we also really want to encourage them to seek out other people who can help them since we're also involved.
Mm-hmm. And through the external assessment, through the focus groups, we're hoping to learn more ways that we can support staff through these moments.
All right. So this was actually a question I submitted as a mom, and I want several people to speak to it. But what do you do or who do you go to when you just have a bad feeling that something might happen? You have no actual evidence, but you just have that gut feeling that something doesn't feel right about somebody. Who do you go to? What do you do? And Mo, could you speak to that first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that question. So, first I would say, trust your instincts, right? That gut check is very powerful. And we often kind of know more than we think. And then once we layer on a cognitive response, then it starts to slip away from us a little bit, right? So trust your gut. I think that, you heard from Officer Strider, who stated that, all concerns will be taken seriously. The systems that investigate allegations or concerns, they do not require you to know more than, what your gut says, right? So they are equipped actually and prepared to determine specifics. And one piece that I often share with the community is that, so when we interact with a kiddo or a family, we are seeing kind of one slice of them, one interaction based on our role, but there can often be pieces, other parts to that kiddo and that family that other systems or people are encountering. And so, that's why it is important to pick up the phone, to call your local law enforcement. If it's a concern that's in the home, calling the DHS hotline, because that's how we actually create the puzzle and put the puzzle together for the full picture of what's going on with that kiddo and that family, if that makes sense.
Thank you. And Renee, can you speak to that as well?
Sure. So I think from a parent standpoint myself, and also as a representative of DHS, I think it's important that, you know, if you're a professional, a parent, a caregiver, whatever role you're taking in a child's life, is that we're always coming from a place of believing. So when a child comes to you and says, hey, I don't like going over to grandma's house. Hey, I don't like it when my cousin comes over and we play downstairs. Listen to that and come from a place of believing. When kids make allegations of abuse or neglect, we really have to pull those strings to really, you know, find a non-truth in there. And, you know, as a parent and a community member, you know, it's just really engaging those kids and listening to them and getting them to know that we are a trusted individual. As far as gut feelings and reporting comes into, as from the reporting aspect, it's very important that when we are making a report to the hotline, that we talk about what the impact is that's going on with this child. You know, if we just get random reports that, oh, I had a gut feeling that something was wrong. Yes, that's important. Yes, we hear you. We want to know how this is impacting that child. My child doesn't want to go to school anymore. My child's not eating. My child was a 4.0 student and now is on an M1 hold. We want to know that impact so that we can get in there, get resources going, and dig into, you know, what else may be going on.
Thank you.
Can I add something to what Renee said? I just want to add to it. So we have had students come, and we want to encourage all adults, students, whomever, to share what, you know, with a trusted adult. And I would just say that we would call just to make sure that if we have a feeling, we would just make sure to follow through with it, regardless of what the outcome is, and that we're not the ones investigating it. So we report it just to make sure and hope that somebody else is able to investigate it.
Okay, thank you. And Anne, would you like to weigh in on that?
I don't really know that I have much else to add. Mo said it best, trust your gut for sure. Renee said it too, believe them. That is, just believe the stories that you're hearing, trust your gut. Encourage our kiddos to find a trusted adult. When we're in the schools, we are always telling them to know who those trusted adults are that they can reach out to. But yes, definitely just trust your gut and believe.
All right, thank you. And Gustav?
Yeah, I concur with all of my panelists. I'll give you a bit of interesting information about trusting your gut. It's a superpower we all have, and it's called neuroception. And so this superpower is on 24/7. And so it is always looking in an environment to detect threat and safety so our body can respond, and it's happening all of the time. So we shift states based on what's happening around us. This is a system that we all have. It's a superpower we all have. So we do want to trust that. When we're in these types of situations where we're unsure, it's sometimes very difficult to trust that. So with that being said, that comes back to all of us on this panel in our district. Parents listen to kids, students listen to other students, support each other, and back to that belief. What is in our gut is to be followed up on. It is to be believed and supported. So that's my piece.
Thank you, guys. Mm-hmm. And the next question, I'd like to know more about how the district is working to create an environment where kids feel safe to report. Did we already do this question?
Yeah, we did.
We did that question. Okay. 13. Okay. So there have been face-to-face meetings with faculty, staff, and students about how to report, what to report, and when to report. What about the admin staff, building leadership and district leadership? Who's holding them accountable? And have there been these same face-to-face meetings with them. So Elizabeth, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. So I'll kind of take several different approaches there. I think it started a lot of our work when I first started with the mental health team, and really them coming together around making sure that things didn't slip through. And they did a remarkable job of when a report comes in, who's involved, and then also that it's posted somewhere, but really making sure that those decisions are not happening in isolation. And so one of the things in terms of like how are administrators held accountable, we have added others to Safe to Tell reporting system. So for example, I now receive 100% of our Safe to Tell tips that come through, along with others at the school. So what that allows us to do is to see what happened through the incident. We require that 100% of those tips that come through have in the disposition log that something has been updated there. We have a fantastic district security administrator, Janie Anderson, and she's really been a connector between what is reported and also what the follow through is. So she sends reports often to me and to our CFO as well, Susie Thompson, just so we can stay up to date on those. We also require incident reports. And I would say probably one of the most significant things that's training and applications of new knowledge through the things that we're doing while folks are reporting. And nobody needs permission to report to DHS. And that is super important that all of us know that all the time. So as trusted adults in our roles, no staff member needs to have permission for that. They may want some help and they may want some supports there, but that those reports are now being logged in systems where we know where the case number is. And then it should be followed up with law enforcement, a call screen or a case number. And so I would say that we are going to continue to work with our administration team around this part, but I would say that we're going to really dive into some more training around Title IX. Title IX, as I mentioned earlier, is a changing aspect. And it's important that sometimes those investigations are done with external folks so that we can make sure we take out any opportunity for conflicts of interest as well. So I just share that, and this is not something that's unique to Manitou Springs School District. Just recently, the Gazette had a long article around just Title IX reporting and the complexities of that. And I would just say that this is where team approaches are really important, making sure that we're not missing anything. So the same for me as in my role. I try to stay informed. I try to stay trained in these processes. And after each of these significant incidences, we do an after action. And in those after actions, we say what went well, what could we have done better, and what would make it never have to do this again. So, for example, after just before the winter break, when we needed to move middle school and high school to not learn that day in person due to a threat that came through, we did an after action. And one of the things we learned was just our communication to our middle school and high school parents was not as concise as it could be. And so that's just accountability. We wouldn't want anyone coming to campus in that event if they shouldn't be there for whatever reason. So I just say a lot of our reflective work is in those after actions. And honestly, folks saying, hey, this worked or this didn't work, that's how we get better, and accountability internally. So after DHS reports are filed, our team does a great job of saying, hey, here's the people who need to know this. And then they log that. So Stephanie or Dustin or others who might want to add, please do that. But this is going to be ongoing, and it's not a one and done. This is continuous evolution and making sure we're reaching out to our partners who are experts in a lot of different ways.
Stephanie or Dustin, did you want to weigh in? Okay. Well, now let's talk about the HR process regarding hiring staff for the district that ensures our children's safety in the future. Can you talk about that as well?
Sure. So, anytime an applicant submits into our job portal, they will go through an interview process and a screening process. Our HR specialist always runs background checks. And as I said, I can only speak to what we've been doing since I've been here. We run background checks. If anything flags that is concerning, then the HR specialist lets me know, and it's a possibility that we don't move forward with that hiring. And then also these reference checks are very important, and making sure that we're doing reference checks that are off somebody's recommendation list. So how far back, and I can just tell you that's something that we are diving into more, making sure that we are really comprehensive in our reference checks, that it's not just the person that an individual might have put on their reference check. So Dustin can speak to the interview process, and I'll just have to be very honest that oftentimes when an applicant is with children and they tell us, oh, I didn't have a great feeling, we trust that child's perspective immediately, and we understand. And that's just some information that we keep with us as we're making those decisions. But the students are really important, and I'll turn that over to Dustin.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'd just like to say that I look at this as one of the most important aspects of my job, is to hire the absolute best adults to be with our students. And so take the whole hiring process very seriously. And one of the parts of it that is really valuable, if a candidate actually has an opportunity to interview, we do performance tasks that involve students. So for example, if we have a teacher interviewing for a social studies position, we'll have them prepare a little mini lesson in advance, and we'll invite maybe 10 students, just a wide array of ability levels and different kinds of students, to actually receive that lesson, which is just great to see how the adult interacts with the kids. And then after, we'll debrief with those students and get their feedback. So that's just a critical piece of our hiring process and our interview process that gives us a lot of insights into the folks that we're bringing on board.
Mm-hmm. And if something comes through, then we will dive deeper into the background as well. And it just informs our decision, and making sure that we have not missed anything along the way.
Great, thank you both. Well, does the district employ any prevention or proactive curriculums for elementary school students, allowing for discussion and teaching moments regarding the topics we've talked about? Stephanie and Mo, could you speak to that?
Yeah, so at UPass and at Manitou Elementary School, our primary go-to for curriculum is Second Step. I'm not sure how they're doing it at Manitou Elementary this year. I know I go into each classroom twice a month, and it's really a great curriculum. It is, well, and I also want to share too that we also use Random Acts of Kindness. That's actually a public site that you can actually check out. Their curriculum is brilliant. I love it. So feel free to swim around in that if you'd like. I'm also willing to share any lessons with anyone who would like to see more of the Second Step, if you would want to make an appointment with me to do so. But both of these curriculums are aligned with the Colorado grade level standards. They're evidence-based, and they're both CASEL approved, and CASEL is a collaborative for academic, social, and emotional learning. I know Second Step, the main things that they try and cover, or they do cover, is growth mindset, goal setting, emotion management, empathy and kindness, problem-solving skills. They also have a bully prevention, a few lessons of that we share. And then Random Acts of Kindness, their lessons are around respect, while they're around core kindness concepts. So under that is respect, caring, inclusiveness, integrity, responsibility, and courage. So many lessons, and the kids, it's really interactive. There's a lot of digital stuff. There's videos. There's, kids trying to figure out problem solving along the way, identifying their own emotions, others' emotions, differences of opinion, and how to respect others' opinions and yet form your own and be confident about it. So yeah, in a nutshell.
Thank you. And Emily, could you speak to that as well?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, can you
Yes.
re-ask the question?
Yes, it was, does the district employ any prevention or proactive curriculums for elementary school students for allowing discussion and teaching moments regarding those topics?
Absolutely. So Children's partnered with Manitou Middle School here in the fall of 2021. So our Healthy Kids program was introduced to their 6th grade students. And Healthy Kids is an evidence-based resilience program that improves students' resilience through a one-on-one motivational child-centered approach targeted at 6th grade students. And this is really the age where kids are most responsive to peer and coach-based interventions. And one of the fundamental components of youth resilience, we know, is having a trusted adult relationship. So therefore, the program really focuses on and empowers students to build trusting relationships with those non-judgmental adults, thereby creating and advancing an atmosphere where kids feel comfortable to share their concerns and feel safe to do so in an environment. I also want to share with all of you that through our approach, we've been able to connect struggling students who may have otherwise fallen through the cracks through our program, and we are just happy to continue to support the students at Manitou Middle School.
Thank you. Mo, could you weigh in on that as well?
Absolutely. So from Safe Passage's perspective, when we're looking at curriculum specifically that's going to assist with kiddos elementary on up to have those discussions, we are always partnering with Kid Power to the point that they moved in down the hall from us. So just recently. So that is our recommendation. Every family that comes into Safe Passage for an investigation, they are referred to Kid Power, specifically, actually, if they have experienced abuse. Kid Power does an amazing job at working hand in glove with their caregivers, any clinicians involved with them, to make sure that their workshops and services are aligned exactly with where that kiddo is in their healing journey. So that is, and as we heard, you've already been partnered with Kid Power at the elementary school level for quite some time. And so it's good to know that you're already doing certainly what Safe Passage recommends in terms of providing those skill sets for kiddos and caregivers.
Great, thank you. And Dustin, you have something to say?
I just wanted to quickly add, I appreciate Stephanie talking about that second step curriculum that's utilized at UPass and Manitou Elementary School. We also use the middle school curriculum second step in our advisory during our advisory time once per week. So the students have that continuation of that program all the way through 8th grade.
Great, thank you.
Just I'll also like to add, we have opportunities for restorative practices at our elementary schools as well. Just these connection circles where children, if they're wrestling with something that the staff, I know I've seen Stephanie lead lots of those and several of our staff when moments come up. As much as we can have children feel safe to speak about conflict or whatever's on their head and their heart, I feel like this is just what Manitou Springs School District does all the time extremely well through our arts integration, through our experiential learning. So I just think that it's really important to highlight this is our staff's framework and perspective all the time. I was at Ute Pass Elementary School on Friday, and the children were heading off to Sanborn, where they were doing a lot of outdoor learning, and they had their sleds, and they came back, and it was freezing. But that's just a fully integrated system that we do really well in Manitou Springs. I actually have never seen anything like it before, and I really do believe it's where every child can grow and learn and thrive, and especially when we have so many committed adults. But we have really creative staff, and they're willing to integrate art and music. And those opportunities really engage children in different ways. Our robotics program, 14% of our kids are involved in robotics. And we know when children are involved in something that's positive and connected to what they love, then they're more likely to stay engaged in these positive upstream proactive behaviors. So I just want to share that as well. And Connect 14 is something that Manitou Springs does extremely well. Our relationship with the Flying Pig Farm, the Beehive, just a lot of opportunities that are really special for students. And I just think our staff, when you go into our schools, we have loving schools. So it's just fully integrated component of who we are. And I'm really thankful that our children get to learn in those environments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take, don't go anywhere or don't go too far. We're going to take just a 5-minute break so you can stretch your legs, get some water, go to the bathroom. And then we're going to take a look at those. There's some questions in the chat that we want to address. And then we'll try to get to the rest of these questions. Again, if we don't get to every single one, the district's going to respond after the forum. So take a break and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Everybody back or coming back? Well, we've got a couple of questions in the chat that we want to address. First of all, is the victim being offered resources or support to help deal with the trauma from the alleged abuse? Mandy, could you speak about that first?
Yes, the victim is being provided resources through our victims advocacy program through the sheriff's office, and yes, so that includes all kinds of different layers, from mental health services to financial compensation to resources, pretty much every aspect you can think of. So
great. Elizabeth, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would defer to law enforcement with this particular aspects. But any time our children may be the victim of something internally or just in other circumstances, oftentimes our counselors will follow back up with the student, or our social workers as well. And just also, if there needs to be some type of safety plan, then our principal works in partnership with others to make sure that that child, whomever might be impacted, is protected along the way. And so that's both for the victim and for the person the individual who may have committed some act against the child. So yeah, I would just say that requires this ongoing partnership with our parents along the way.
Thank you. And now the next question is, the past may have been prior to the parties on this panel. However, students, especially at the high school level, are reading about this and hearing about this in the news, that our authorities at the school were aware and nothing happened until years later. How specifically are you changing that culture and addressing that issue head on? And Destin, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it starts just in the conversations that we've been having with our staff internally, and that open dialogue that we're encouraging families to have with school officials and with teachers. And then obviously from a school district perspective, reviewing those policies. And once those have been updated or revised, we spoke about just making sure that we're really thorough and answering any questions and role playing, and just making sure all the adults in our district know what to do and feel confident that they have somebody to ask a question to if they have one.
Thank you. And Maggie, can you speak to that as well?
I mean, we're just encouraging staff members to feel like they can come to us. Students, they actually interviewed me for the Prospector at the high school, the school newspaper, and asked what they should do. And I reinforced again, a trusted adult is who you should talk to. And it doesn't have to be a school district member. It could be any trusted adult. And then we can help guide you with what next steps to take.
Thank you. And Stephanie, can you weigh in?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just cultivating a culture of trust, transparency, in the things that can be shared, and really making sure that staff feel supported in both their feelings and their concerns.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, do you have anything to say?
Sure. Just yesterday, I met with the student council at the high school, and myself and Anna Conrad, the assistant principal, and we kind of asked that exact question in terms of, students, how can we support you during this time? And they just expressed the range of emotions that they're experiencing, and when they see their high school's name in the paper, it's impactful. And there's so many great things going on, but at the same point, we still need to recognize those emotions and feelings that children are experiencing. And in addition to, as Sierra said earlier, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and coming out of that on the backside really has presented so many different aspects around behavioral support needs. So we're in this together. I'm confident that we have great students who are willing to ask good questions. And as Stephanie just said, we really talked about transparency. What does that mean? And essentially, I think they made a really good comment. It's okay. They said, for example, it's okay if we don't know everything. We just might want to know why we can't know that. And we talked very openly about the difference between FERPA, in terms of protecting students' rights and records, and then HR and personnel issues. So those are very different, but also very connected systems within schools or any organization. So I think there's more, as much as we can have that dialogue, it's going to be very important. We're going to be following up and working on some plans at the high school around some student meetings. They're planning a culture day, and they're really looking at these family meetings that can kind of come together. And so I just recognize that this is not a one and done circumstance. We need to attend to our culture in really meaningful and thoughtful ways. And it's going to really require us to come together and listen to children. And I would imagine that also Sierra could add to this. But before I hand it over to you, Sierra, is just before the winter holidays, Maggie and also a person from our HR department really spoke to students about what does it mean to have for adults to be mandatory reporters. And some students didn't realize that when they actually report, that we have a responsibility to then do that work on their behalf. So they don't have to do that. We can do that for them as much as information that we have there. And then also they spoke about Title IX. There's a lot of misperceptions about what Title IX is. When I was growing up, it was a perception it was for girls to play basketball. And that has evolved so much. And really, it's just that children can learn in safe and environments free of harassment and discrimination, that they have equal opportunity regardless of any type of social construct around race, class, gender, ability, you name it, that everyone can just learn freely. So we have a lot of work to do there. And I would say that I'm excited about engaging in those conversations with our students. They're so smart, they're so wise. And it doesn't start in high school is what I would also add. So we have significant work to continue that dialogue. Sierra, anything you want to add there?
I just like to add, yeah, the importance of recognition of things and student voice based on those things as well. So, and yeah, as a student, I know the importance of reporting things and just knowing all of the resources that have been provided to me. We had an assembly about Title IX. I hadn't even known about what Title IX was. So it was really impactful just to know that that resource was there. And we were also given other resources as well, just to help talk about things, let alone also like trusted members at the school as well. So that was really helpful as a student to get those resources.
Great, thank you. Now, the next question, this was from the chat. What do you do when there are no trusted adults, when the trusted adults are the ones who are abusing the students, and when other adults sweep the allegations under the rug? How are you protecting students when the adults in your district refuse to acknowledge the abuse students face in your schools? Elizabeth, I'll let you take that one.
You know, I think if it's okay, I'd love to defer to Maggie or Stephanie as well. And then I can add on the backside if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Maggie?
I was going to let Stephanie go because she was raising her hand first. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's good to keep in mind that trusted adults are also outside of the building. We have kids always identify who are your trusted adults at home, who are your trusted adults in the community. It could be a coach, maybe a community leader, like, you know, a church leader or something like that. It could be a friend or, you know, even friends' parents. I would hope, and we do like them to at least identify anyone. It doesn't have to be a mental health worker or a teacher. You know, we're talking, you know, if they've got a good rapport with custodial or, you know, our food service people, they're all wonderful people that love to connect with kids. Someone that will give them an ear long enough to report. And if that doesn't work, to keep reporting till they find someone that will help them out.
Thank you.
And so I just want to add that that's one of the things that we identify in the threat assessment and the suicide risk assessments is who are your trusted adults. And we do a re-entry meeting to try and identify what adults they feel safe with. And it's really a key factor for us if we notice that there's no one that they feel comfortable with. And then we will go out of our way to make a connection with the student because we're aware that everybody needs someone to be a trusted adult. So I think those things help us. Also, I want to add that we've been doing teen mental health first aid in the high school. And that is one of the things that we have talked about with the students when we do it, the 10th graders, that it's really important to have somebody that you trust. I mean, that's really a key note.
Thank you.
I saw
And
Jan and
Jan, did you want to speak to this as well?
They did a beautiful job. I didn't have.
Okay. I thought I saw a hand. Renee?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I just want to say that in the sense of a child not feeling as if they have a trusted adult to go to, I think that's where our resources of being anonymous come in.
Mhm.
If that means making a safe to tell tip on yourself,
Yeah.
then do it. If that means making a DHS call on yourself, then do it. You know, we do have those kids out in the community that they are just so isolated and they are within that culture that they don't know anything but abuse and neglect. And so, you know, keep those numbers out in the school districts. You know, the ability to push safe to tell is just so huge. We, you know, work very closely with Mandy and Janie both with these safe to tell tips, and it's just amazing what comes through there. So yeah, if kids are not feeling like they have a trusted adult, reach out anonymously. And again, keep doing it until you feel as if you're being heard.
Thank you.
And just to add, you know, other resources like the crisis hotline and other anonymous reporting systems are really helpful. In fact, our law enforcement often on these calls will make sure other agencies are using those type of tip conversation pieces so that students can get supports real time and families as well. The second part of that question I think is really important. It said, how are you protecting students when the adults in your district refuse to acknowledge the abuse students face in your schools? You know, I think that's super important. And when we hear that type of question, it makes me ask other questions along the way. So I think that to whomever asks a question or anyone who's asking that type of question, we will not push things under the rug. And we're fully committed to, in fact, rugs are meant to be flat, and anytime there's a bump, there's something that's going on, and we want to make sure that we are talking through those together, and that if something is not being addressed with the person that you need it to be addressed with, there's always other people within the school district that you can talk to, and we want to make sure we get to the root of whatever's going on before anything moves forward. So that includes myself, others. Let's make sure that we're being proactive versus reactive. And Officer Strider is also a fantastic resource.
And then there was a follow-up to that question. It says, so the onus is on the students to find a trusted adult to keep them from being abused. Is that, are we putting the onus on the students or on the adults here?
I can answer, but maybe someone else can also add to that question.
Does anybody, any volunteers?
Well, it's hard to speak for a student and who they trust and why. Sometimes you're surprised by who a student trusts, and yet it's such a personal thing, and we would like to give that autonomy, but we also like to encourage them to think that through, and that I do take that responsibility with kids, is to walk through, hey, who do you know at home that you trust? Who do you know in the community that you trust? You may not need to know that kind of stuff today, who you know in school that you trust, but when that time arises, you'll already have that information and that go-to.
Gustav, you have your hand up?
Yeah, and not working day to day in the district, I simply wanted to share an observation, and I think that this question leads us to culture and continuing to work toward a culture of authenticity, of trauma-informed care, of being proactive, not simply, like I say, opening pathways, but being engaged and truly being connected to students, so that there are more opportunities, more opportunities for those adults to be trusted, rather than the one or two that people are comfortable going to. We can continue to train and improve and increase the capacity, the number of people that are even qualified to feel like they can be that for someone else. And so that's simply what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much. Now for this next question, I do want to point out that the journalist in me wants to say that who knew what when is still under investigation. But the question here is, your district has clearly hidden and ignored reports of abuse in the past. How are we expected to believe our students are safe under your supervision now?
It's a great question. And I think it's one that we're, one of the reasons we're having this meeting tonight is to talk through the reflections that we've had in the time that that I've been here and the systems that I know that are in place, but also there's always opportunities for continuous improvement. And so I can talk about the things that we've done in the last 2.5 years, but that doesn't negate maybe some of the circumstances that were there. And we're always shooting to improve. And that feedback is really important. I think it's super important as well that anyone who is reporting is also feeling safe to do so, and that that we create a culture that is important, that if someone moves forward and says, I need to share this information, that they are in an environment where that is safe for the reporter. And sometimes that can be hard and challenging, but I just want to make sure that this is a constant state of improvement for us. And I can just tell you from our staff and the folks I get to work with daily and the caring, loving adults, that they're willing to speak up and say something and also work through difficult things. So I think it's going to be ongoing dialogue, and I also would love to engage in parent groups as well to make sure that our students feel safe to be at our schools all the time. And maybe others want to add to that. Yeah.
I can say that a lot of things have changed, even in, this is my 5th year at Manitou. And I know when I arrived, there was a large concern about confidentiality and protecting that hardcore. Maybe some fear of, I don't know, retaliation against maybe who you're reporting, whether it's a family, parent, whatever. And maybe not feeling amazingly safe about knowing that someone would have your back. But what I want to say is, when the Claire Davis law passed, it made that so wide open and clear that not only is that a responsibility, but I mean, we're expected to do that by law, to share and to report. And so I think having that pass, and I wish a lot of other states had this law, it's made it much more safe for us to report and to ensure that these kind of things, get reported when and if they do happen.
Great, thank you. Another question.
If I could speak,
yes, please,
quickly to that too. Thank you. Well, it's really difficult for us to speak to what happened in the past because we weren't there, we weren't involved in it. But what I can say with my personal experience with Elizabeth, the second that she knew that these allegations were made, she jumped into action. She made sure that we followed all the appropriate steps. She was dedicated to a thorough investigative process. She has been phenomenal in making sure that this does not happen again, and that whatever happened in the past is going to be rectified. So I just think that it's important for everyone to know that her dedication to this from the get-go has been phenomenal. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Now there's a question I wanted to ask. So we've covered all the questions, and if there's anything from the chat that we have not covered, the district will address those in writing. But we do want to end on a little bit of a positive note. So I want to go through all the panelists and ask each of you to tell us briefly about something you've seen in the work that you do that gives you hope that brighter days are ahead. So I will start with Mandy. I'll start with you since I forgot you at the beginning accidentally.
Thank you. I have a list going. First of all, I just think that it's been so inspiring for me to work closely with the administrative staff, the school principals, the assistant principals, the counselors, everybody who is wrapping their arms around every single student and making sure that these kids don't fall through the cracks and that they have an amazing educational experience has been just really amazing. And I wish that everyone could see what goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we're giving everything we have to kids and their families. So that's beautiful, I think. And my partnership with Janie, if anybody knows her, she's amazing. She works hard. She's actually been texting me because she never stops working. She wanted me to tell everyone that we are teaching Safe to Tell to elementary school students, because I forgot to say that earlier. So sorry, Janie. But if everybody knew how hard Janie works for them, they would be amazed. And then also a shout out to Renee with DHS. She's been such a great partner. And for me, it's just a bright spot to know how hard people work and how dedicated they are. It's beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. And Emily, do you have a story you can tell us, something that gives you hope?
Absolutely. So first of all, I just want to share that our program is 100% philanthropically funded through the Manitou Springs and Colorado Springs community. So I think it's just incredible that our society is starting to invest in programs that are upstream and preventative. Ones that focus on empowering and supporting students before they fumble and then before they're in crisis. And just a really quick story from one of our health coaches this fall. So we had a student that had tried to tell 3 different adults in one day that they were suicidal with a plan. And that student actually ended up meeting with our health coach later in the afternoon that day and had disclosed that information finally. And the health coach was able to connect that student with the needed resources and support. And they, these stories re-energize me and, give me hope. And I want to commend Dustin and Elizabeth on their leadership to bring this program to the district because we certainly could not provide these programs to empower students without their support.
Thank you. Gustav, do you have a story to share?
Oh, I usually go on forever, so I'll try to. I will say, I mean, I see hope in what we're doing here. I see hope in that we're having these conversations. I think someone, now I'm going to forget, maybe it was Jan, I probably shouldn't even have said that, that talked about trauma in secrecy and the fact that we are having these discussions, the fact that we're all learning what it means to notice when someone is not behaving appropriately, and for the individuals to know that they are supported and they have resources. All of the partners that are here on the panel, I want just more and more of you inserted into the district, more education, more support, normalize this. Let people know it's okay not to be okay. And it comes with having these conversations. It comes from being vulnerable and not being, I know what the thing is and I'm in charge, and so it's going to be this way. No, it's about being vulnerable. It's about giving students a voice, letting them grow and develop and find out who they are. And I see that throughout the district. I am privileged enough to get to meet student leaders once a month, early in the morning even. And that's part of my best work on the board, is to hear from the students and how their lives are directly impacted and what their hopes and dreams and aspirations are and what their struggles are. They're the ones that can help us develop policy, procedure, environment. And something that's been said throughout this evening is culture, a true culture of caring. You can't fake it. It has to be authentic. And building that authenticity breeds that ability to collaborate and build a model of trust and support that permeates through the district, out to the parents and the community at large.
Sorry, muted myself. Anne?
Thank you. I know that I speak for myself and all of us at TESA, especially those in our youth and children's department, when I say that we're just so encouraged by how invested the staff and administration at Manitou are in their community of kids, proactively affecting change and really creating empowered students for the future. And so we're happy to be part of the ride and being able to support your students. And every time we're in your schools, we see that community of kids that you've built and are just so encouraged by what they bring.
Thank you so much. And Renee?
Thanks. I think what brings me happiness right now is just right here, right what we're doing. We have an amazing group of panelists, and the amount of attendees that showed up tonight just really shows how important this information is to the community. And to see that is just amazing. I said earlier that I've been working with Mandy and Janie quite a bit this year, and that is just a complete change from what has been going on historically with our department. And so to bring that together and to just collaborate with Manitou as a whole and just strengthen not only our side of the fence, but your side of the fence as well. Totally looking forward to meeting all of you guys and meeting more of the community. And, I think this is awesome.
Thank you. Jan?
I agree with the other speakers that being here tonight and the transparency tonight is extraordinarily hopeful. Happily for us at Kid Power, our work is all about hope, because we get the joy and the privilege and the honor of helping to empower kids, and we give kids a voice. And so we get to watch them, whether we teach kids 4 to 18 years old. We're in your elementary schools, but we teach all ages, and we get to watch them leave programs with new knowledge and confidence and concrete tools and options that are usable for the future. And to us, that's very hopeful. The story I have is just this week, because we, through the month of February, are doing virtual programming. And this past week, we've been in kindergarten classes. And so we're beamed in to the kindergarten classroom. And there's just something extraordinarily hopeful about seeing 5-year-olds put their hands up like this and in clear, loud voices be able to say, "Stop, I don't like that." And then just the joy in being able to say no and being given the permission to be able to say no. So I think that's my story. I think there's a lot of hope out here. I think there's a lot of hope in what everybody on this panel is doing and how committed everybody on this panel is to helping our kids be safe.
I love that story. Thank you. Mo?
Yeah, thank you so much. So echoing certainly the sentiments that we're hearing from fellow panelists, but I think where I find hope is specifically hearing and seeing the student involvement. So what I see is really systems change in the works, right? So if we take a long view of this and understand that child abuse was not against the law until the 1970s, and we look now to February 2nd, 2022, and we have Sierra representing the student body. We understand that there's real dialogue around the facts of the role that we all have as adults in the students' lives as mandated reporters. I mean, those are things that I certainly wasn't taught, that I was not aware of. And now you have Sierra's generation ready to engage in their lives as they move on as adults, as caretakers, as professionals. They're ahead of the curve, guys. I mean, this is transformation. And so that gives me hope. I mean, it gives me chills kind of, because that is where it's past time. And here we are, we did it. So that gives me a lot of hope.
Thank you. And who do I have next? Stephanie.
I think for me, knowing in order to support kids well, that staff also need to feel supported. And I think trajectory is everything. I feel like I'm a part of the most amazing team I've ever been a part of in my professional life. And I know that at any point I get stuck or have a question or just a moment of pause, I can call any of my colleagues on the mental health team and say, hey, I'm stuck on this, and they're there. They help us out. I know my building has great morale. We have a lot of fun together, and yet we take education seriously and kids safety seriously. And I love that our district is becoming trauma informed to a level deeper than I ever thought possible. It's a lot of hard training, but it's so worth it. And I love our community partners and the fact that when we need to reach out and beyond, they're always excited and there to help.
Thank you. And Maggie?
I just want to impart my story of hope. There's a high school student who's come to me with difficulties, and I've reached out to Stephanie. I've reached out to the other social worker, Chrissy. I've reached out to many other people, Mandy, and everybody kind of took this kid into their arms and surrounded her like the village that we all need. And I feel like she's getting the support and the help that she needs in every area. She has siblings at a different school where Stephanie works. And so we're all working together to try and help this family. And that gives me hope that we're working together to help a family.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Dustin.
Thank you. I'm really excited. And I just think about Gus's comment about culture. And that's it for me. Just, we are committed to creating just a wonderful culture for every student and staff member, and constantly striving to be the best school possible, best district possible. And I feel like we're headed in that right direction. I see amazing things every day in classrooms, and I wish I could share those with you. I do take pictures and post them on Facebook, and I encourage you guys. It's just regular students in the classroom, ordinary moments that are really special. And I'll just end with this. We were planning our second quarter honor roll assembly and trying to figure out what would be fun for the kids to do. And one of our teachers volunteered to be duct taped to the gym wall. And so we had a bunch of our students go up and they got to duct tape a teacher to the wall. So it's just moments like that are fun and really encouraging. And if you want to see a picture, it's on the middle school Facebook page. But I love coming to work every day, and the students and the staff are awesome. So I'm just excited for the current moment and the future.
Thank you. I definitely want to see that picture. And Sierra.
Just this meeting alone, honestly, has given me hope. We're taking something that could be perceived as a terrible thing, which it is, but we're also using it to strengthen ourselves and strengthen our generation and empower students. And just my voice being heard alone has given me a lot of hope and has made me feel like I'm heard. And I think a lot of other students could agree with me that just the fact that we're being acknowledged and that so many people care about our future is just so inspiring and wonderful. So that's just been an amazing experience to be a part of.
Good. Thank you so much. Did I miss anybody other than you, Elizabeth? I didn't forget you. I was just going to let you go last. Raise your hand if I missed you. Okay, good. Elizabeth.
Well, I think Sierra, your voice just brings so much hope to me. I mean, there's so much wisdom in your words and your hope for your community. You've been alongside a lot of the recommendations around the neurosequential model and implementation with Partners for Healthy Choices, and just your leadership in the class that's been developed at the high school that came from just people being willing to sit at the table and think through what's possible. So that's hopeful for me. Yesterday, even though we're a snow day right now, yesterday I started my morning in a preschool classroom. They were playing, learning how to throw the Frisbee. I participated in some game as well. Then moving into a secondary class with the student council. And to see from preschool to nearly graduation, that range for our students and what they get to experience every day in a loving and supporting and a caring environment is touching and moving. And I know we're here tonight because of some recent events that we have been made aware of, and another event, which are unfortunate. They really are. And I can't not acknowledge that. But the reality is we're here now, and we are going to do everything we can moving forward. And we're going to do that together as a team and as a community. And we need our community now more than ever. There are really great things. And I really hope our staff here as well, how wonderful they are and how fully committed. But we're going to get through this. And I'm optimistic on the backside. And also I'm hopeful the learning that we have as an organization and as a community. Organizations that learn together, thrive together, and Manitou Springs School District is an amazing district. And if we can't do this, how can other districts do it? We have all the pieces, parts, places, and people to make this happen. And I'm just thankful for the partners here today. I'm thankful for our Board of Education for being supportive of this hard work. They're very open and excited as well. So I have a lot to be hopeful for, and I'm hopeful that we'll get through this on the backside better than ever before.
Thank you. And I have two things. First was seeing how many people attended here today. I think that just speaks volumes to how much you care about these kids and these schools and this community. And the second was when Elizabeth first asked me to moderate this, I would expect a school administrator to say, okay, here are the questions we would like you to ask. And she said, ask any of them and all of them. So I think that speaks also to how this district is really doing the work. And I'm so appreciative of that. So we're at about time.
We have our board president.
Oh, thank you. We do have our Tina, you're on here as well, aren't you? And you're muted. If you want to unmute yourself.
Absolutely. And I would have been okay if you would have skipped me. I'm the least important person.
No.
So I just want to thank everybody on the panel and our attendees. I appreciate the expertise. I appreciate your, your great thinking, both proactive and responsive strategies to support our community and our students and staff. Just for some context, in addition to being board president, my child is a 2018 graduate of Manitou. And so for some of the families that are really sharing their concerns about their students, whether they were there at that time or just their feelings of to make sure that there is a position of trust, that they may be angry, that they may have continued, that appreciate all of the great things Manitou is doing, but still have so many concerns, please reach out to both Elizabeth and the board. We want to continue these conversations. Know that the board takes these horrendous allegations very seriously. But then also as an educator, as someone who's been in public education for over 30 years myself, I am so proud of learning what we've been doing. I've already known quite a few of these agencies and partners and that we've been engaged, but to hear the amount, the intensity, the frequency, the duration that we have been involved is head and shoulders above other districts. And so again, I can't be more proud about the work that is going on and our staff. I don't want our staff to be collectively known as these horrendous allegations by these people. And so I want us to understand that there are good things going on and will continue to go on at Manitou. We're not going to give up. I think the best thing I can do is share a quote because I didn't prepare anything for tonight. Instead, I wanted to listen and take a whole lot of notes for our follow-up as a board, for our follow-up with Elizabeth, and hopefully these partnerships. But it's one that I've really cherished for a long time. It's by Leonardo da Vinci. And it says, I love those who can smile in trouble, who can gather strength from distress and grow brave in reflection, because certainly this is a time of discomfort and distress. We've shared our hopes, and I think that is great for vision casting and moving forward, but we can't ignore people that certainly have still a lot of distress over this, possibly connecting to previous trauma in their own lives or just concerns, general concerns, and we have to respect that, and we want to hear that as well. The rest of the quote, though, is, "'Tis the business of little minds to shrink, but they whose heart is firm and whose conscience approves their conduct will pursue their principles unto death. So perhaps the unto death is a bit dramatic, but the point being is that we in Manitou have principles, have character. We are Manitou. And as we said, we're not going to move through this as if it didn't happen. We're going to work on this together. So I think this quote embodies us coming together as Manitou and our partners. And when I say Manitou, I mean all the community. I live up the pass in Cascade, and it's all of us. And it's kind of really more of a disposition to be Manitou rather than a geographic location. And so again, I thank you all for being here in attendance and in partnership with us as we go through this together. And thank you again, Sierra. I love it when we have a student voice, and you have been so thoughtful and articulate tonight. So thank you.
Tina. Yes, agreed. Sierra, you've been wonderful. Thank you all for being here, all our panelists for spending your evening with us, and all our community members who stayed in, and everybody who sent questions. So the final questions, anything we didn't get to, you guys will address.
Yeah.
And are we going to call it on a snow day for tomorrow? Do we
I
have that
have-
information yet?
Not yet. Hold tight, everyone. That's also an important decision. So well,
Need a
stay
couple
tuned.
minutes, yeah.
Stay tuned, everyone.
Well, have a great night. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.